Okay, our next item is 6.4, 9:20 a.m. Still on Texas time, apparently. Consideration of a request for assistance under the California Disaster Assistance Act, CDAA, to mitigate pervasive tree mortality, including a memo, hazard tree removal plan, HTRP, and letter requesting waiver of 25% local match requirement. And this is brought to us by our administrative office. We've got Matthew Rothstein and Terry Lugston.
Good morning, Board. My name is Matthew Rothstein, Deputy County Administrative Officer, and it's my pleasure to present this item this morning. And as you'll see here, Terry Logston, our Chief Climate Resiliency Officer, is likewise here and will be able to respond to any questions that you have once the presentation has concluded. As you're aware, repeated and compounding wildfire events, extreme drought conditions, and groundwater depletion have led to widespread tree mortality in the state of California and in Lake County specifically. In 2019, the United States Forest Service estimated 1,000 Lake County acres were afflicted by tree mortality, and the estimated number of dead trees was 3,000. By 2022, however, those estimates had reached 31,000 acres and 590,000 dead trees. To be clear, this is in Lake County alone. 22,000 of those trees sit along county roadways and rights of way, many miles of which are critical arteries and evacuation routes for our communities. And in response to that, on May 3, 2022, your board adopted Resolution 2022-61, which was a proclamation of the existence of a local emergency due to pervasive tree mortality. As your board is aware, unprecedented storms of 2023 temporarily lessened drought conditions, but they also demonstrated the vulnerability of county rights of way to obstruction from downed trees. Removal of the 22,000 or more, that's a growing number of hazard trees that threaten public infrastructure and public safety, is clearly an urgent priority and well beyond the capacity of the county to fund through local resources. Understanding what state and federal supports can be available, therefore, is critical to our ability to respond. In the time since your board's proclamation, Supervisor Pyska and staff have coordinated with Cal OES, the Governor's Office of External Affairs, MGE, and other local, state, and federal partners to evaluate the magnitude of the situation and potential for funding. California Disaster Assistance Act, CDAA, enabled funding, as you are aware, is provided on a 75 to 25% reimbursement basis. So if we submit costs, we can expect under normal conditions that 75% of those costs would be reimbursed, to be clear. And the county is responsible for securing funding for all of those costs up front and then waiting for reimbursement for a period of time. With your board's approval and support, staff requested USDA Forest Service Urban and Community Forestry Inflation Reduction Act funding on June 1, 2023, which could potentially cover a portion at least of the local match requirement. Unfortunately, to date, no funding decision has been communicated on that by USDA. To substantially mitigate tree mortality, significant funding will be needed. With many other routes having been explored, I want to draw particular attention today to Lake County's letter requesting waiver of the 25% local match requirement. That will be submitted to Director Ward and is discretionary among the executive staff at Cal OES and with gubernatorial support potentially. That's really pretty critical to our being able to respond in a meaningful way to tree mortality in Lake County, and we'll continue to seek the governor's support for that letter. And as you will have seen, all required supportive documentation for the application was attached to this agenda item today. There were quite a number of documents. And on review and consultation with County Office of Emergency Services, Public Works, and Disaster Finance partners, staff finds that the following board actions will support submittal of the request that we're placing today. Those include approve submittal of all required and supportive documentation to Cal OES's Public Assistance Division pursuant to the California Disaster Assistance Act, collectively constituting Lake County's formal request for assistance to mitigate pervasive tree mortality. Authorize our CAO, Susan Parker, as authorized agent for Lake County in this request for assistance, providing required county assurances. Authorize Auditor Controller Genevieve Harrington as a secondary authorized agent as consistent with Forms Cal OES 130 and OES FPD 012. Authorize the following as additional approved contacts: Scott DeLeon, Public Works Director, Stephen L. Carter Jr., Assistant County Administrative Officer, and Terry Logston, our Chief Climate Resiliency Officer. And as previously mentioned, approve the letter to Director Ward of Cal OES requesting waiver of the 25% local match requirement, and authorize Chair Pyska to sign that letter on your board's behalf. To be clear, with today's item, we're submitting a request for assistance to the state. There are no contracts associated with this. We're not agreeing to any particular pricing for the tree removal services, for example. What we have done is defined the most urgent priority, which is removal of the dead and dying trees from county roadways and evacuation routes. And we're providing the necessary documentation to seek the state's support pursuant to the Disaster Assistance Act. Documents have been prepared for this application in consistency with past successful applications from other counties. And I want to acknowledge that a lot of work has gone into this to get us to this point, quite a lot of work. And we really could not have gotten this far without the tremendous leadership of Chair Pyska, who has really become a regional leader and statewide leader in this effort, and also our CAO, Susan Parker. And the collaboration and thought partnership of many others, including our Public Works Director, Scott DeLeon, Emergency Services Manager, Leah Sadale, our contractors with MGE and partners with Lake County Resource Conservation District, including Kevin Soland, our forester, and our Auditor Controller, Genevieve Harrington, and her Disaster Finance Fiscal Manager, Dakota Hockett. All of those people have been absolutely essential, and I apologize if I'm forgetting anyone. And we'll look to Terry and Supervisor Pyska to fill in any blanks. And I also want to especially thank Terry Logston, our Chief Climate Resiliency Officer. You'll know she's been here since early December, and her dedication since arriving here to ensuring all the pieces of this complicated puzzle came into form in the best available manner has been, truly remarkable and worthy of your board's understanding and recognition. So we look forward, that concludes this presentation, and we look forward to any questions your board has and look forward to submitting this application to the state.
Did you have anything else to add, Terry? No. Well, I also want to thank Senator McGuire's office, who's been kind of with us along the way, attending so many meetings, and just there for general backup, and hopefully will help us continue to carry this forward. So do we have questions from the board? Supervisor Spatier.
Yeah, just a few things. Appreciate all this information. I feel like our ask gets overpowered by what's too obvious in the letter, because what stands out to me are the bullets, and the bullets to speak to way more than what we're asking for. It speaks about 31,000 acres. We want to make a point that there's a problem, right? So that's why those bullet points are there. But then underneath, it says there are at least 22,000 dead trees along. I feel like we need to highlight that, like bold it, because we don't want it to get lost that we're not asking to take care of 590,000 trees, or else that's like asking $2 billion from the state and say, please waive the 25%, right? Like, I want to make sure that it's easy for the state to find the specifics, where obviously that would potentially be $88 million, and then 25% is being asked to be waived. So I think something of that effect needs to happen to make sure that we're highlighting the specifics, not highlighting the worst case scenario of getting everything taken care of. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple of other things. You mentioned the USDA. I would say because of the week that Chair Pyska and I just had in Austin at the NACO conference, we met with I have his card right here, Director of State Operations, so he oversees all the state directors for USDA rural development programs. We were with him, I would say, at least 2 of the 5 days, and he was also at our lunch table that we had on special seating that we were provided. And so I would say reach out again and see if that personal contact helps out. He talked about there's 70 programs. As long as what you're asking us is legal, we'll figure out a way to make it work. And I believe I can quote him on that. And I would say let's use that personal contact that we made to see if we can get a different response from USDA. Then I have another question. So this is big money, right? $88 million, 25%, so we're looking at like $22 million or something like that. I believe we've put some money aside either in ARPA or in cannabis taxes. I'm just wondering if we tell them, hey, we have $500,000 right now to match. We're not asking for you to give us a blank, clean slate of zero. We're putting in zero. You're going to give us the full 25% waiver. What does that look like within our letter if we say, hey, we have some money right now. This is what we can afford to provide. We're not asking to just give us everything. We're trying to pitch in where we can. Does that really make for a different reaction when this is received at Cal OES versus we've got nothing, we're asking for everything? So those are my questions.
So a couple things to respond to. We can only do this for the 22,000. So, I mean, we can bold it. At the end of the day, it has to be within our, around our infrastructure. So I think that is just generally known in our letter. As far as the Inflation Reduction Act funding, that still has a 50% match. So yes, we want to get that, but yes, we still need this waiver to even cut down on that 50% match. And then, what was your third point?
About putting some money up front and saying that we've allocated.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's really necessary. To be clear, this waiver request, we don't know anything about this process. When the person managing the program came up here in May of 2022 to explain how the program runs, and he had been running the program for 10 years, there was no mention of a waiver. He retired. And then we had a call with his manager, who has been overseeing the program since its inception. He casually mentioned a waiver could be possible. We've done the research. We've never found it. Senator McGuire's office never heard of it. No, it was never mentioned. So we're kind of in new territory with this waiver request. The match was legislated previously in 2015. We can't get it legislated again, so this is a way to just see what will happen. I kind of hesitate to see how much we have to get started, because how this program operates is you just draw a circle, like we have this polygon here. We're going to start working there, and we just submit as we go. And you know, there's a certain amount of standing dead trees in that polygon now. We know it's going to grow, but that's the flexibility in the program, is that you just get started. You start in one area, you work around. By the time you get to the other side, there's probably more trees and you got to start again. So it is an unknown amount, and there's an understanding with this application that it is an unknown amount. So that's my response, but I don't know if either of you have anything else to add.
I do have just one addition, and that's that while we haven't seen a waiver request being approved, that was a step that some other counties took in 2016, which was a precursor to the state saying in 2018, we need a CAL FIRE program to come alongside counties that are struggling. So having that documentation in place could be an essential step to making sure that the issue is known and documented. And then if there is some, future possibility of state funding to come alongside that isn't necessarily the full waiver, or if there, it also, this will be submitted to staff with the agency that have discretion to make a thoughtful response. So we're not necessarily anticipating that we'll get, quote, a blank check or something like that, but we are expecting that this is a step in the process that will help us get the maximal possible state support.
Yeah. Oh, and one more thing to add. My conversations with Supervisor Smallcomb from Mariposa County, we've been working very closely on this for close to 2 years. And she mentioned, because I said we were about to do this and submit, and she said, it's really interesting. We heard back from Cal OES about the cleanup from the Oak Fire, and they only have a 10% match. And she couldn't figure out why. She was showing me the emails, and I thought, well, that's probably a waiver that no one's really talking about or knows about, that they kind of just got it without even requesting. So if we can at least get this down to 10%, maybe even 15%, but any reduction in that 25% is going to be helpful to us. And then if and when we do hear about the Inflation Reduction Act funding, our match for that gets smaller too.
And just to finish off, I know you've put a lot more work into this than I have, so your knowledge is going to be greater, so I'm okay with moving forward. I just know with the Middle Creek Restoration Project, since we allocated $800,000 to the design process, that was a question that we received from the Army Corps engineer, and once they knew and saw the proof that we had that money allocated, now we're meeting weekly with the Army Corps to help move the project along. So sometimes it could help and grease up the wheels a little bit more. So just wanted to bring that up, but happy to move forward.
Yeah, I think it's a completely different scenario. Any other questions? Supervisor Green.
Thanks. Appreciate the hard work that went into this. I just want to turn to the one-pager briefly. Just for clarity, there's a map on there. I think that's the polygon you were just referencing. So I'm guessing that's the proposed work area, but I don't see a caption or something that explains that. There's also a reference to the map on the reverse. And on a one-pager, it's going to be hard to show a map on the reverse unless it's actually a two-pager. So that was one question, just what is that polygon shape on the one-pager? Can that be clarified if that's a proposed work area or an area of focus for the funding request? And so that's just a real simple question. The other real simple comment is just I'm a recovering editor, so every time I see the word exponentially, I want to say no, it's geometrically. So I appreciate that tree mortality is spreading very rapidly, but I highly doubt it's an exponential rate of spread. So, so the question on the polygon.
Yeah, so on the polygon, that's clarified really in the hazard tree removal plan, that's the area of focus. It is on the one-pager, and my apologies if the copy of the one-pager that was attached did not include the map on the reverse. We do have a version that includes the map on the reverse, so we can make sure that that's the version that's attached with the application. But yes, the hazard tree removal plan clarifies that the polygon area, which is here on page 12 of the hazard tree removal plan, is the area of focus.
Okay. Then maybe just adding a caption or a one-line little thing under that map would clarify it for its repurposing on the one-pager.
Great. Yeah, thank you for that feedback.
It looks like a good package, very supportive of this. Let's see what happens.
Okay. Any comments from the public? Just a moment. You can come up to the podium after this.
Michael Wegner. First, I'd like to commend Chair Pyska for taking this on. What a huge endeavor and super duper important for everybody. I'm sure anybody who's traveled around Lake County has seen this is an issue and definitely concerning and slightly scary, right?
Very scary.
Something I wanted to bring up, and I don't know if this is the proper way to go about it, but as we remove these dead trees, the potential to replant those trees at the same time would seem like maybe we can combine the two together and perhaps find some funding for the replanting of the trees from the state so that maybe you could gain money or momentum for your project kind of indirectly. At the same time, when we talk about money development and we talk about swaths of trees, living or dead, it brings into my mind carbon credits and the ability to generate carbon credits from land and trees. So maybe you could offset some of the cost by getting the carbon credits for the living trees in land that we do have. I'm not sure who would know, but maybe somebody here does know if that land does have, all the land is not dead, right? There's swaths of dead trees, but there's also a large amount of living trees that we could carbon credit now to fund your project. Just something I wanted to point out, and if anybody would like to speak to me about it, I'd be happy to assist.
Sure. So appreciate your comments. This program is only for protecting infrastructure. So it's only for the dead trees that could fall on our roads or our county buildings or our parks. So it's just really getting that right of way cleared. So this will not go out on the general landscape at all. And a lot of the areas are our county right of ways. We do have to work with some landowners to get it's probably going to be about 100 feet, maybe 200 feet from the road. So it's not going out on the landscape.
Okay.
So if that property owner wants to do a replanting program, that would be up to them. But this is such a massive program, we have to stay specifically within the guidelines.
Focused on what you're doing.
Correct. We do have a lot of other things going on with large landowners that want to do forest health work. I think that's maybe where your comments would align better.
Okay, Ms. Biasca, maybe, thank you for addressing it. Maybe you and I could talk about that in the future.
Of course.
Thank you.
Hi, Yolanda Chavez. I'm really glad I came today because that's great what you're working on. I just had a question about, all the homeowners associations around the lake, and they have people, on their property and on their properties, they have old trees that are dead, and they can't afford to cut them down. Any funding or anyone to call to see what we can do about that?
Yes. So again, that is outside of the scope of this particular program, which is just for protecting infrastructure. But we are working on those programs. We've been applying for funding, for homeowner assistance, for, grant work. Clerk has done a lot of this over the last couple of years in the in the areas where it's kind of the epicenter of beetle kill. We're working really closely with PG&E to make sure that they're on their infrastructure. We have a tree mortality task force. We meet monthly. It's a agency-to-agency meeting. We're having our meeting on this Friday. So there's a lot. This is a bigger problem than just, keeping our roads clear. We've got to keep our communities safe. We've got to harden our communities. We've got to have our fire breaks around them. We can't have standing dead trees around. So this is a massive, massive problem, and this is just one piece of it.
Okay, thank you.
Come on up. Oh, but I'll just add one other thing. If you would like to join the Fire Safe Council, Lake County Fire Safe Council, or Lake County Community Risk Reduction Authority meetings, those are two places where we talk about this a lot, that are public meetings.
Okay.
Lake County Community Risk Reduction Authority, we meet the third Monday of the month at 3 o'clock. That moves, so you check our county website for the agenda and location. And then the Fire Safe Council, Lake County Fire Safe Council meeting is a Zoom meeting on the second Thursday at 10 a.m. Of course.
Yes, it's probably a smaller issue than what we're looking at, but I'm here because first of all,
Your name, please?
Paulette Allen with D&P Poles. I'm the contractor.
Okay.
And I'm here because right now I have a permit that's been in the building department for almost 4.5 months. Very simple layout. And I've been building here in Sonoma County for 30 years, here for 24 years in Mendocino County. It is taking me 3 to 4 to 5 months to get a permit. And swimming pool permits are costing $5,000.
I'm sorry, this is about swimming pools?
Yes.
Okay, so this discussion item is about our package that we're sending to the
Okay, so I
state
just thought
for
that,
tree mortality.
so did we already miss our turn? Okay,
Yeah,
for today to
yes.
represent?
Public input was at 9:06.
We didn't know that.
Yeah,
We were here, but we didn't know it was our turn. We didn't know we could stand up.
yeah. We have to adhere to our
So when is the
agenda.
next board meeting?
Our next board meeting will be next Tuesday, and 9:06 public input would be the
Okay,
time.
great. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else in the chambers or the Zoom room that would like to comment on this item? And I'm not seeing any in either place, so I will bring it back to the board. I don't know if Matthew or Terry have anything further to add?
If I have the corrections correctly, what on the the waiver letter, I'm going to switch the sentences per Supervisor Sabatier's suggestion and make the second sentence the first sentence so that it's directly under that link, and then to add the polygon to the one pager on the back.
Okay, isn't it already on the back?
The polygon is on the one pager, but what we're needing to do is make sure that we have the broader vegetation losses map on the back, and also Supervisor Green asked for a caption on the front describing what the polygon is, or to make sure, at least on the front of the one pager, that it's clear what that polygon is.
Okay.
And we're happy to do those.
Okay, Supervisor Crandall?
I just had a question, and I was going to ask it, but we got it in the public input. Worst case scenario is they charge us the 25%, and that's that. We submit, and is it kind of like one of those gimmies, or is it like we're crossing our fingers regardless?
I don't want to use the word gimme, but the program is set up.
Sorry.
And no, it's okay. The disaster is still open, and so this is the process to get the funding.
High chance.
Yeah, and if we don't get any assistance with the match, then we'll just work through the money that we've earmarked, and we'll go as far as we can go.
Okay. So it's not going to hurt to ask for a waiver because they'll
No.
just say, nope, but you have to charge this amount or whatever. Okay.
Right, so what we're just trying to make the case, and what I've been making the case up and down the state is, we can't afford the match, the money that we have won't go very far. And we can't protect our communities without further assistance.
All right.
Okay?
Well, I'll motion to approve submittal of all required and supportive documentation to Cal OES Public Assistance Division pursuant to the California Disaster Assistance Act, collectively constituting Lake County's formal request for assistance to mitigate pervasive tree mortality. With corrections and additions? Or do I have to do that at a different one?
With corrections?
If I'm understanding it correctly, I believe it's, would that be on the first and fifth bullet point as far as the corrections being made?
So my understanding is that it's the waiver letter that has the content that Supervisor
Oh, okay.
Sabatier
That's
was
the last,
referencing.
yeah.
So if we can just make sure that the waiver letter is as amended once we get to that action item.
Got it. Okay, so then I don't need to add additions and corrections, just solely ending at mitigated pervasive tree mortality. You want me to read it off again? I can.
I do believe there were some changes to the one-pager that were described by Ms. Luxon.
Yes, and that's an advocacy document that we prepared, not a board-approved document historically.
Because it
I don't
says
know that's
here,
strictly
submittal
required,
of all supportive documentation. So just want to see if we need to make the amendment with the supportive documentation as presented.
Could be, yes. So on that first bullet point, it would be as amended, if there are changes to be made with the document.
As amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Madam Chair, I authorize Susan Parker, CAO, as authorized agent for Lake County in this request for assistance, providing required county assurances.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Madam Chair, I authorize Auditor Controller Genevieve Harrington as secondary authorized agent as consistent with Forms Cal OES 130 and OES FPD 012.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Madam Chair, I move to authorize the following as additional approved contacts: Scott DeLeon, Public Works Director; Stephen L. Carter Jr., Assistant County Administrative Officer; and Terry Logston, Chief Climate Resiliency Officer. And, well, yeah, that ends the
Second.
motion, right?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the letter to Director Ward requesting waiver of 25% local match requirement and authorize Chair Pyska to sign with amendments.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Good luck.
thank you. Yes.
Thank you.